Please be seated. We are going to begin the funeral service for Mr. Jerry Starkman. If you have a cell phone, I'd ask you kindly to place it into silent mode at this time or turn it completely off. I'd also like to welcome everyone via live stream. On behalf of the family, thank you for attending. Services will be conducted by Yehuda Polstein.
So we're gathered here to remember a dear friend of so many. Mr. Jerry Starkman, of course, remembered by his wife Kimberly, by his children Steve and Karen, Lonnie and Michelle, his grandchildren Ryan, Nicholas, Eric, and Rachel, and his great-grandchildren as well, Brooks and Addison. Before we begin, we're at a loss of words, and so our tradition has us do an action which is a very strange action. That's tearing of the garment. In Hebrew it's called kriya. It means to tear, and of course it's a metaphor for what we feel. Our world is torn asunder. The fabric of our existence is a little coming apart, and so we make a small tear in just a moment together. But there's another explanation, if I may, and I want to share that with you. And the reason that we do this tear, symbolic tear that we wear is because we know it's just the clothing. According to our tradition, the soul lives on, and just like the body, you could take off a jacket, you could put on a tie, you could take it off, you could do different, we have the same belief. And even though it's hard to imagine, it's a little comforting to know that we still carry that soul with us. So if I could ask Kimberly and Lonnie and Stephen to rise, we're going to make a blessing together, and then you'll help each other. I'll come down in a moment, and we'll tear the ribbon, and if you just give a listen to that tear, and that will be our prayer as well. Baruch atah Adonai Eloheinu melech haolam dayan hamet. Blessed are you, Lord our God, the judge of truth. There's so much to be said, and yet at the same time, what can we really say? So again, we turn to the words that have written way before us and have offered many measure of comfort, and that, of course, is the words of King David, written in the 23rd Psalm. I'm going to first read it in Hebrew, and then together as a family, as a group of friends, we'll read it together. You could find it on the inside portion of your pamphlet, right at the top left corner. First, let me do it in Hebrew. Mizmor LeDavid Adonai Roi Lo Echsar. Binot Deshe Yarbitzeni Al Mei Menuchot Yinahaleni. Nafshi Yeshovev Yancheni B'Ma'aglei Tzedek Leman Shemo Gam Kielech B'Geit Salmoves Lo Yirara Ki Ato Yimodi. Shiftecho Mishantecho Hime Yinachamuni Taroch Lefanai Shulchan Neged Zorai Tishanta B'Shem Roshi Kosi Revayai Achtov B'Chesed Rifuni Kol Yemei Chayai B'Shafti B'Veit Adonai Le'orach Yomim. Together, if we read it, the Lord is my shepherd, I shall not want. He maketh me to lie down in green pastures. He leadeth me beside the still waters. He restoreth my soul. He leadeth me in the paths of righteousness for his name's sake. Yea, though I walk through the valley of the shadow of death, I will fear no evil, for thou art with me. Thy rod and thy staff, they comfort me. Thou preparest the table before me in the presence of mine enemies. Thou anointest my head with oil. My cup runneth over. Surely goodness and mercy shall follow me all the days of my life, and I will dwell in the house of the Lord forever. From Ecclesiastes we read, from everything there is a season, a time for every experience under heaven, a time to be born and a time to die, a time to plant and a time to uproot what is planted, a time to tear down, a time to build up, a time to weep and a time to laugh, a time to grieve and a time to dance, a time to throw stones and a time to gather stones, a time to embrace and a time to refrain from embracing, a time to seek and a time to lose, a time to keep and a time to discard, a time to tear and a time to sow, a time to keep silent and a time to speak. And as difficult as it is at this moment, we're going to try to share some words. Before we do, we know that we can never do the full justice that Jerry deserved. But we're going to try. We're going to make the best effort. So to help us do that, we're going to start with Steve. And then we'll go to Nick, and then I'll finish on behalf of Kimberly. Steve.
Nick to come up with me. This is my son, Nick, and I want to thank everyone for coming out to see, the transition that my dad is making right now, and it means so much for everyone in this room. How many lives he touched, right? So I'm going to try and do this in a good, composed fashion. I told my son Nick to be close in case I fall down. But I don't think that's going to happen. I feel like I have the strength to power through this. So, Jerry Starkman, he had multiple nicknames, right? So one of them was the Hot Dog King of Evanston. So, we can take that with us. There's no one going to be that ever again. So. And the other one is Colonel Mustard, right? So an adopted type of name because, we embraced him. One of the things that he said to every customer that ever walked into Mustard's door was, "Thank you for coming." I never missed, no matter if they were little kids, tall, old, it didn't matter, is "Thank you for coming." And you don't get that in every restaurant, and you probably never will. But, that's a tradition that Mustard's has and keeps going in his honor. Let me just continue on. There's a couple things I'd like to say. Mustard's, it's 53 years in business, right? So, Bob Schwartz is here. He knows us from the very beginning, from Vienna Beef. And my dad started as a pizza guy, believe it or not. So he started in the Inferno Pizza place, with Jerry Freeman. I see Nancy and Randy here today. The Inferno meant a lot to everybody because it was a gathering place and it was a pizza place right by the Evanston Hospital. So one of the things my dad always strived to do was to own the property. That was important to him because he knew under lease terms that they could change the lease. So him, Ashley, they bought what is now Mustard's. There's a house. It was right down the street from the Inferno. And they had 2 months left on their lease. The story may be known to people, maybe not known to people. So Ashley, yep, hello. They opened a hot dog stand in the meantime for the 2 months till they can move the pizza place over, right? And Jeff, hello. And it's 53 years later, and the hot dog stand still exists. It just took off, and there was no way to go back on it, right? The hot dog stand became its own flourishing item, right? So Mustard's has over 50 copycats across the country, maybe even more, as we keep researching, And we call it flattery, but that's something that when people walk into Mustard's, they have been there when they were a kid, and sometimes we see people walk into Mustard's and they say, this is holy ground for them. This is their place that they grew up on. It was a very safe environment. And we see people walk in always taking pictures of the sign, of them in front of our signs and stuff like that. So for that, Dad, I thank you so much. Employees, okay? We have 20-year, 30-year, 40-year employees. I see people here who have been with my dad for that long, and my dad always said, this was proof of what kind of boss he was. Okay, so how many people stay for that long with one boss, right? So Keith, Valadia, Angel, Chris, Sam, Peter, Annie, everybody who showed up today, thank you for coming. And, we just had our 50th anniversary, right? 50 years, right? So a lot of restaurants, they do go past their 50th year, but how many people celebrate? And how many people celebrate like Mustard's did? Not many, right? We had the car show. We had a fastest making contest. I didn't want to do it, but fastest eating contest. We had a drone flyover. We put together a beautiful video of that. So those are some of the things that that my dad did. And, I gave him what's we recall the Founders Award, right? For being one of the founders of Mustard. So this meant so much to him that I was able to present this to him on the 50th anniversary. So I just wanted to share that with you, everybody. As far as, this, I be honest with you, I've been having a hard time with this whole, because I even though it's going to happen, you don't know how you're going to react when it happens. But the support that I've been getting, right, with my son Nick, and with everyone, my brother, I love him so much, and the hockey team, okay, they dedicated a game to my dad, right? So these are the things that are happening behind the scenes, thank you guys for that. And then from the live stream, there are people watching from all across the country that knew Jerry, my dad, from Division Street, where he grew up, right? There's Howard from here. Howard's such a dear friend of my dad. Okay, Howard. Kenny, he emailed me like 20 times, like, I need to be involved. Mervin, Mitch, Ackerman, okay? They even wrote a book, I'm from Division Street, highlighting a chapter from my dad. So, those are the important things. So I do have a few more people that I want to say that I want to represent before I turn it over to Nick. But the care team, right? So Connie, right? Dina, everybody that took care of my dad during these times, right? I love you guys for what you guys did. I absolutely love you guys for what you did. And of course, without saying a word, we know what Kimberly meant to my dad's health care. She was so instrumental in my dad having such a pleasant experience during the health trauma. I cannot thank you enough. I have a million thank yous for you, Kimberly. And I know this is the hardest day of our lives to say, goodbye to our Jerry, but I just adore the way that you took care of him. First class, all the way, ultimate protector, and never left him alone, okay? So I don't know what to say, but except for thank you so much, and I just a couple more, if you don't mind me taking a minute or so. For the media support, right? I don't know if you noticed, but my dad, and what he touched and who he touched, we had over 20,000 impressions from our Facebook post that we created. 20,000, okay? 100 people shared it. It was in CBS News, right? They did an article, a news story on my dad. Sun Times, beloved Sun Times. He loved the Sun Times. And to be in there made the world for him, so we made sure he got in there. But they wanted to do it, right? And the Chicago Tribune too. And Pat Fitzgerald, who just, he tweeted how much he missed and loved my dad. We have a legacy that's built up right now. So, me, my wife, Karen, Lonnie, and Michelle, okay? Those are the core of our next generation that's going to be involved in mustards, right? And then, we've got Eric, Rachel, Nick, Ryan, right? So everyone is going to be part of this. No matter what part they touch, they're going to be part of mustards, right? So I love everybody for doing that. Now my brother Lonnie, thank you for letting me speak on behalf. I'm doing my best. I hope I don't kind of mess it up, but Lonnie adored my dad. Okay, Lonnie meant everything was about my dad. Okay. No matter what went down, Lonnie needed my dad. We all had to talk to Jerry. And, so many people talked to Jerry. He would call people. He was the number one phone call person of all time. Right, Ronnie? I mean, did he need a phone like constantly? He couldn't live 2 seconds without a phone, right? But anyway, Lonnie, thank you so much. I appreciate you letting me speak on behalf. It's not doing justice. I wish there was more that I can say or do, but I love you, my brother, okay? And, as far as the legacy, I've got Nick here. There is one more thing, as far as the health issues, right? So the health issues happen. It can happen to everyone, right? So I'm going to end on kind of a funny, happy note, because that's the way I feel my dad would like, right? He loves to see people smile, even in this time of very much sadness, okay? So, all right, if you don't mind, here I go, okay? All right, so Nick is like, don't do it. I'm like, I'm gonna do it. Okay, all right, give me 1 second here. All right, so if you know my dad, he didn't like to have his tubes in, okay? The tubes, to keep him going. So we'd have to put on these like restraints so he wouldn't take the tubes out, right? Okay? So just so you know how my dad made light of any subject or anything, right? What do you think he did? He made it rain. I'm like, Dad, what are you doing? He's like, bring me that money. Let's make it rain. Let's make it rain. So with that, I did it. I actually, I got cautioned against doing it, but I did it anyway. But that was my dad, right? He was so happy that he had everyone around him. I'm going to close with a statement to my dad, that, I love you, Dad. You are amazing. You taught me everything I know, everything I do, and you passed on amazing things to everyone. So you were loved by thousands, and there will never be another one like you. And I'm so glad that you graced us all. Thank you very much. I love you so much, Dad. And that's and with that saying, I appreciate you letting me spend the time. I'd like to invite my son Nick up to say a couple words. Thank you, guys.
All right. Well, hello, everyone. I'm Nick. I'm Jerry's grandson. But if you guys knew Jerry, you probably knew him for his quick wits, his bright red Corvette, or his notoriously tall height. The first two are true, but the height, not so much. But what he lacked in height, he made up for in heart. He not only did he raise two sons, but he raised a community. Just recently, I started getting into the social media and reviews for his business, Mustard's Last Stand. And it was only after going through all that feedback and, all realizing that I truly realized how many lives he touched over his lifetime. And if I were to name every one of them, we'd be sitting in this chapel for a couple years. So I'll spare everyone the time. But I will name a couple notable ones. First of all, Coach Pat Fitzgerald of Northwestern, he said in a tweet that the community will never be the same without him. And he characterized Jerry as a great man. And there's Seth Meyers. Seth Meyers, he grew up on mustards. He was a graduate from Northwestern, and he later stated at a Northwestern commencement speech that he has hopes to start his dream job at Mustards. So, Seth, if you're watching this live stream, you can send your resume in, and we'll see if we have a spot for you in the Mustards family. But speaking of Mustards family, he really did treat Mustards like family. And if many of you guys remember Keith Woods, may he rest in peace as well. And I had the honor to grow up with Keith, as Jerry would always make sure that Keith had a loving family and a home to be at for all the holidays. And he really made Keith feel like he was a member of the Starkman family. And, we just bless his soul. And we also have our Valadia, Sam, Angel, and many of our other fantastic employees that have been with us for decades. We all consider you guys our extended family as well. And, we appreciate you guys all for coming. And I'd like to make a special shout out to Kimberly. Kimberly's been there for the last, for over 30 years of his life. And, you've been really instrumental in keeping him alive for the last couple of years. And, we all really appreciate all the hard work that you've done. Lonnie, Eric, Rachel, everyone contributed in their own way to him. And, I'd also like to make a special shout out to my dad, for handling all the finances for, Mustards, medical bills, everything. Lonnie, you were instrumental in Mustards, for countless years, You really helped grow the business, it was truly a family business. And, I appreciate it, and I know Jerry does too. So like I said, Jerry didn't just raise 2 sons. He raised a community, and may he rest in peace. Thank you all.
So before I begin, I just want to, first of all, that was very, very beautiful, very moving, both of you. Thank you. I shouldn't be up here speaking. This is really Kimberly's slot. But Kimberly, as many of you know, has, as you can see, is really broken up, completely broken up over the past few days. So much so she couldn't even imagine being able to stand up at a funeral, let alone be able to get any words out. And the reason I mention this is I think that tells you everything we need to know. Jerry was, and very much is, Kimberly's everything. He was the love of her life. She was the love of his. Their love was a love so true. It's just painful to even consider living in a world without Jerry. And even though they were fortunate to have 33 years together, it somehow feels like it's still not enough. With that said, I asked Kimberly just the other day to look back and remember those 33 wonderful years that they spent together and to reflect on some of those special, maybe magical moments together with Jerry. A man who cared about everybody and would do anything and everything for anyone, and especially for Kimberly. The 2 met at Gulliver's. It was a Jerry telling Jerry. And it was a June 6th, on a date that would prove special. because on the same date every year, or just a year later, the two were wed. And a date on which the two of them would renew their vow annually, and every 5 years they would renew their vows in Vegas. They both took that date very seriously. So much so that every year on the anniversary, Jerry made sure that they were together, but he would also make sure that there was a special custom jewelry piece that he would lavishly give to Kimberly. They would go on cruises together in January. They loved to travel. They would go to concerts. They would go to shows. But Jerry wouldn't just send them on a, here's a ticket, enjoy the show. He made sure they had a box, made sure they had the royal treatment. Jerry would make sure the red carpet was rolled out anywhere and everywhere they went. Monday was Jerry's night with the boys. Thursday was a night for Kimberly and the girls. And if ever their schedule happened to have needed to be changed, Jerry would call and he would ask to check in on Kimberly, always thinking about her. He would often be heard purring down in his Corvette down the street, circling the house just to make sure Kimberly was okay. And if she was sleeping, then she would be up and would often show up at work or random places just to say hello. Because they were together, there were no secrets. Well, not exactly. Kimberly would prepare every year for Jerry's birthday when she threw him his annual surprise birthday party, which he somehow never figured out. He tried. He had even suspected. But Kimberly had these elaborate ruses set up to throw Jerry off the trail, often using friends as accomplices. And for 28 years, if not more, Jerry was surprised. Whether it was a night out at the Greek islands, Pinstripes, Myron and Phil's, may they rest in peace, they were celebrated everywhere. It was one of their traditions, and they respected them just as much as they respected each other. They took their marriage seriously, their special days seriously. And despite Jerry's proximity to the world of college sports, their marriage was never a game. I had to say it. Jerry would protect Kimberly till the end, and Kimberly had the opportunity to protect him and care for him. And even as he took ill, she promised she would never be willing to have him put away in a home, even if that meant turning their home into a hospital, which she did. For these past 8 years, Kimberly has dedicated every second to him, setting everything up just right so Jerry would be comfortable. Anytime any issue came up, their motto was always, we'll deal with it. And despite originally maybe not being a needle person, or maybe even being squeamish around blood, Kimberly transformed herself into a nurse with all that that entailed. When I asked Kimberly if there was a single phrase that she would like to say to Jerry, or he should know, she said the following: I loved him with all my heart, and I hope that I proved that to him. In the Jewish tradition, love, the Hebrew word for love is ahava. Some people see that sometimes on necklaces or on artistic designs. Ahava means love, but it also comes from the root hav, which means to give. Giving was at the core, at the root of Jerry's essence, and it's no wonder that he had the love and the admiration of his family and so many around him. May Jerry's memory be forever a blessing. Yehi Zechro Baruch. At this time, I'm going to ask you all to please rise as we recite the memorial prayer in honor of Jerry. And as we do, please take a moment to think of something positive that maybe Jerry imparted to you or to your family or to your loved ones. And then together we'll read it in the English. Just give me one moment so I can make sure I have the right prayer. I'll do it first in the Hebrew, and then we'll do it together in the pamphlet in English. Getting a little feedback. 1 second. El Malei Rachamim, Shoechen Bamiromim, Hametzein Cholechona, Tachas Kanfei HaShechina, Im Kedoshim Utoarim, Kizor Haraki, Yamatirim, Es Nishmas Jerry, Ben Seidi Beben, Shalach Le'Elamoi, Bal Rachamim, Yastirei B'Sezer K'nafav Le'Elamim, Yitzor, Yisor HaChaim Es Nishmaso, Adonai Yunachal Asav, Yenuach B'Shalom Al Mishkava V'Neimar, Amen. Together, inside, on the inside portion of the pamphlet, the prayer, El Malei Rachamim. Let's read it together. O God, full of compassion, thou who dwellest on high, grant perfect rest beneath the sheltering wings of thy presence among the holy and pure who shine as the brightness of the firmament unto the soul of Jerry Starkman, who has gone into eternity. Lord of mercy, bring him under the cover of thy wings, and let his soul be bound up in the bond of eternal life. Be God's possession, and may his repose be peace. And let us all say, Amen. You may be seated.
This does conclude the service at the chapel. Immediately following the interment, the family will be receiving condolences at the Starkman residence, 9715 Woods Drive, Unit 1710 in Skokie. That'll be Thursday immediately following the interment, Friday from 12 until 4, and then Sunday, Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 10 until 2, and then 3 until 8. Those times and information is on the folder, as well as our website, so please refer to that when visiting with the family. Interment will take place at West Lawn Cemetery at 7801 West Montrose Avenue in Norwich. If you're going in procession, the procession will be forming in our parking lot. Please keep in mind a few safety features while in the procession. Keep your bright headlights on at all times. Put your emergency blinkers on. Attach the orange funeral sticker to the passenger portion of your front windshield, and we will also attach a flag to the roof of your car, and please stay as close as safety permits to the car in front of you. The following people have been selected to serve as pallbearers. When I call your name, if you please step forward. Steve Starkman, Nick Starkman, Lonnie Starkman, Eric Starkman, Howard Frum, Sam Lucia, and Brian Stiglitz. At this time, I would ask that everyone please rise as the family, the clergy, and Mr. Starkman are escorted from the chapel.